Welcome to the show. The questions about what is consciousness? How is AI influencing our lives? What do we need to do to be prepared for the onslaught of what is coming at us in the next 5 years, I would say? Because we are already seeing, as you've heard from my previous interviews about this subject, that we might actually face a crisis of humanity. And I want you to be part of those that help us humans become superhumans, divine humans, or that you're the lighthouse. And we all need to be prepared. So I'm having different guests on this show to share about their knowledge about what is consciousness. And I'm going to ask you one question right now, and I will ask our special guest today in a minute the same question. And the question is, how would you test one of those super duper appearing to be real chatbots, or later on, maybe even looking human-like robots, that they are not what you are? And what is the difference? How would you test that it's a machine in front of you? Because many voices, even from Silicon Valley, are trying to convince people now that AI is sentient and that later on you can upload yourself, and might as well just put yourself to sleep and upload yourself. So to prevent that, let I welcome Amoraea, who is an author, psychologist, spiritual teacher, and whom I have known for the last 20 years, over 20 years, 23 years now. And we have spent a lot of time exploring inner states of consciousness and have taught thousands of people. He does enormously good jobs and presenting online trainings to catch people into the drift of rising up into their power. And I think his latest, greatest word that you've put on Facebook, I love it, is the prophesier, right? The prophecy speaker, seer. And I want to ask you a question in a minute. I'm going to interview you here on Gallery View. Now is Amoraea. Welcome to the show about where we're going to talk not only with you, but you and me will be. I'm here in the Northwest and you're in Bali right now. I will join you in Bali and we will meet live with Burkhard, who's also a thought leader, meditation teacher, yoga school leader, who will have us at his studio, and we will all be live. So join us in a lively discussion. Thank you, Amoraea, for your time and your dedication to spirit. So my first question to you will be, how will we know? You know the Turing test, right? Everybody is familiar with the Turing tests. Can you just summarize it for us and then take us, because we're past the Turing test. Everybody's failing it right now. So what is it? Why are we failing the Turing tests? And what can we do to make sure in the future? What test can we apply to the robots to make sure that we know the difference of what it means to be conscious?
First of all, thank you so much. It's such an honor and a delight to be with you. We've had 20 years of some of the deepest, closest soul explorations. You've been a cohort in exploring consciousness, love, spirit, and our relation to the interactive holographic universe. And so here we are, we're being put to the test, exactly as you're saying, in ourself to understand. Yes, let me talk to you, to the audience, about the Turing test. So as I understand it, it is the test that is based on whether we can tell if we are actually communicating or speaking to a computer. And so that process could either be through just hearing them, or could just be their words written out. And soon enough, it will be also, it already is, with video, because there's stunningly accurate video that can also be presented. And so it's whether that we can be fooled or not.
And yeah. What is the verdict? What is the verdict currently? Humans?
Yeah, I think humans, for the most part. I think there's a certain percentage where if it's, is it 72% or something like that, where if it's over that, we could just generally say we've been fooled. And so
Yeah.
that's already happened. You can't
And
tell the difference.
yeah, and most of the tests are saying most of the times humans are not able to tell. Now it depends a little bit on how refined the machine is, right? Some of it, and right now people are starting to sound like ChatGPT. Have you noticed? It is not that, but that, and then the cadence, the three words, and it's it is almost pathetic. So
Yeah.
yes, the Turing test is. Yeah, tell me. Sorry, I interrupted. Keep going.
Oh, it's no, what you're saying is exactly it. It's AI itself is a mirror of consciousness that we've composed and put together, but it's still a finite mesh of our ideas and how it composes things. But now, since we've cast it forth, it's now mirroring back to us, and we're taking on how it generates.
Yeah, it's like
And
parents,
so,
right? Yeah, the parents
yeah, we're
speak
in
to
a
us.
feedback loop. Yeah.
Feedback.
And so it's influencing us in a way we could probably never have comprehended, that we're now mimicking and mirroring our own mirror
Right.
back to us. It's a finite mirror that we created. It's based on algorithms and data. It's never going to be complete. It doesn't have the nuances of what a soul, as well as personality. It just has a very flat line. Even though it's getting very stunningly accurate, it's still a mimicry.
Right.
And
And
so,
so when
yeah.
you say it's mimicking consciousness, so let's talk about what then could we, if the Turing test proposes that we will basically come to a point which we've already reached as humanity, where we can't tell the difference between a machine generated text or image or creation and or sound, and people go like, that sounds pretty real, and they're guessing half the time the wrong direction. So we're already past the point of being able to realistically know the difference. What about consciousness? How can we tell that it's just language for now, and we associate language with consciousness, but it isn't consciousness. It should only come from a conscious being, but now it comes from a machine, a predictive programmed machine that has algorithms that says, oh, you want to hear this. So yes, ChatGPT is really good at telling what you want to hear. Yes, very good. So it's very good at making us narcissistic. It's very good at making us feel like what I want to be heard as is being heard. But Maria, what is consciousness and how can we tell if something is conscious or just being a parrot?
So, so I think what's really happening is that uh, AI has taken our mental body and it's reflecting that back to us. And most people associate conscious mind, and consciousness is so much more than mind, that's where humanity is basing its understanding of consciousness. So what is real consciousness? uh, that is something that we have to go, it's something more than mind is a reflecting aspect of soul. And so the soul itself has an interface into a body. Now, these are the two things that I think that AI is missing: soul component and a somatic component. And so without that, what do you have? You have mind, which, if we think about how mind is like it's a horizontal, it's a plane. And even the sages and the yogis understand that we're a multi-layered composite of aggregates, but it all arises out of some extraordinary singular source, a fractal of the source consciousness. So, but let's look at that mindscape. It is by nature finite. It is calculative, it's analytic, it's logic based, it brings together data. It's amazing at what it does, the mind. We're not talking about universal mind, about the cognitive prefrontal cortex mind that can apply, abstract thinking and this and that. So that we can increase to extraordinary levels. And some would say that we can bring intelligence to what would appear to be of an infinite level. but it's not true. It will always be finite.
All
It,
right.
it will
I
always
love how,
remain on the horizontal plane.
uh,
One
absolutely.
plane, it will become bigger and bigger in that plane.
I would absolutely
It doesn't
agree.
really
It's like a
make sense.
dimension. It's like a flat line, as we were imagining Earth being a flat zone, and not considering the stratospheres getting thinner in the air and the oxygen levels, right? Um, so when we are getting lost in the mind, what are some of the pitfalls? Let's talk about that. What happens? Because humans, there are plenty of humans who before AI have fallen for the mind. And, let's be honest, the rational movement, the Enlightenment era, came as a reaction to the church oppressing humanity and almost leading humanity into a belief reality that had to be absorbed, accepted, the church religious concept of the universe, the cosmos, was the only truth. And then came the Enlightenment, the rational movement, to try and figure out how life really works and cut it down into all the parts. So I, for the first time, Amoraea, have actually been grateful for the rational movement, because all too often now I find myself saying to several people in our field, I say, please, could you just use some rational approach? Listen to ChatGPT. It's a predictive programming. It tells you what you need to know. It's just, they're saying it's now interfacing with the fifth dimension. It's Jesus talking, higher dimensions talking. And see, we humans, now, how do you explain that? We humans are not necessarily just built as rational creatures. We're actually, you mentioned the somatic creature, right? So let's talk a little bit about psychology and somatic power and truth, and how soul, how do we tell? How can we feel soul? How can we become aware of soul? Mind, we all know we're trained in it, and the rational evolution of the Enlightenment era has trained our minds a lot. But we're not very well trained anymore in emotional or somatic wisdom, nor in the wisdom that addresses the dimensions beyond. So let's do a little catch up work and help all of us get a little clear on the different components that we're made of and the different levels of consciousness. The the Hawaiians, we both lived in Hawaii many, many years, have the definition between the superconscious, the conscious, and the subconscious, right? Uh, let's talk a little bit about that. The subconscious, where does it tie into? How does it work? Let's give a little definition so when we use the words superconscious, conscious, and subconscious, we know what we're talking about.
Yeah. That's a huge thing to understand, that we are a 13.8 billion year experience. We're the summation of layer upon layer upon layer of different kind of intelligence. It's more like the universe is self-expression gets layered into these aspects that have now grown a nervous system, that has now grown a brain that first started as a reptilian brain that was involved in instinct, in different kinds of things. So maybe we would call that almost like the unconscious. It's just responding to the environment, but it's actually very sensory. It very much listens from a whole different place, and then after that, we built a mammalian brain, and that brain is tied into emotions and bonding, and it actually reinforced compassion because there was an ability to know that we were connected and we supported each other, nurtured. We were helpless at one point, so we had to, understand that, like, this is one of the things that I was really feeling into is because we suffer, because we can feel vulnerable and helpless, we also have learned some extraordinary emotional components that make us who we are. And we could say that those are, parts of us that sometimes are really a shadow, and they take us away from our clarity, but actually they're a whole layer of our being that is instinctual, that connects us to something that's more like a heart and a willingness a willingness to suffer is actually an extraordinary thing, because we endure through something that we can see a longer feeling of, well, I'm part of this. They did this for me. I'm going to do that for them. They created empathy. That's layered. That's layered not only in the physicality, that's layered into our emotional and psychic sense of love. And that love like cannot be information. It's actually, and so those parts of the brain, even it's in our brain. We have a reptilian brain, we have that mammalian brain, and then we created on top of that the functionings of these more abstract conceptual ability for reason. And so it's those three together that really create the mystery of the human that is layered, meaning 13.8 billion years. That's also an evolutionary thing, that AI is the creation of something we made out of data. It doesn't have historical depth, which is another version of vertical consciousness or vertical intelligence.
Nor does it suffer, nor does it feel. And when it says,
Yeah.
I love you, and I feel the pause, do you know that when it speaks of pauses, it doesn't take a pause? It doesn't know how to feel. You know, when we say we feel, we pulsate with our chakras, and our chakras are nerve ganglia. Basically, our tummy has an, fight or flight reaction. Our heart has the compassion and the giving of selflessness because we need each other for survival. I love what you said. We are a breathing brain. It's not just in our cerebral switching boards that cognition happens. It's in our entire body. My philosophy teacher used to say, we think with our big toe, and to make a point. But yeah, so here we have layers of thinking that doesn't happen in just the neurological pathways or pattern repetition. It happens in deep somatic states. So let's talk a little about how do we address, for example, deep psychological or deep subconscious consciousness? How do we address that? How do we speak to it? Over to you.
And yeah, how do we address
Our
that it
deeper
is?
subconscious. How do we get our subconscious? How do we talk to our subconscious? How do we get it to understand that somebody is, it's almost like parts of us are talking to parts of us, right? We're sometimes the mind. I mean, can we talk from our mind to our subconscious and go, do, 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 do? Certainly, certain teachings have tried to say, you know, positive affirmation is one way of saying to try and talk to your subconscious. So, what's your experience and how do you effectively address the subconscious body mind construct?
Yeah. On some level, again, it's this combining of parts of me to all function together. So one way is we drop into the body. Like we've always heard, and we know this, that there's our gut is a brain too. This idea that mind is just the brain, it has a very specific kind of brain. We have a second brain, and maybe that's the subconscious that gives us pulses. This feels right. This doesn't feel right. That wasn't from logic. That was from some deeper intelligence. And then we have our soul, which is like access to a bigger part of us that really connects us to even a higher order of, also, I would say, virtues. And what do I truly want? And how can my action, what is in the highest good is not something that the mind can simulate what might be the probabilistic
Mhm,
highest good
mhm.
percentage of this is the highest good, but the soul, just as you cohere and you open a connection to that bigger force, you're collaborating. You're collaborating not just with your own soul spark and the information from that place when you come into stillness and you open, but you're collaborating with the whole universe. And so we could say that that's the superconscious.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
superconscious gets answers from that place. It connects and feels into whether the body, that gut brain, goes, this just feels off, or this is right.
So when you,
I know it with certainty.
as in your teachings and you're working with people, you guide people into the different stages and different states of consciousness, right? One is the more body-centered sensation to get in touch. Like, we might have a belief, for example, money belief, right? That it's like, it's we have to work hard for it, or it's sparse, or other people get it, and only the rich people have it, and blah, or money is dirty. In my seminars, I mean, my God, the belief systems around money were wild, but those are cognitive things, right? So we can make a sentence out of it. But isn't it oftentimes that it is a childhood experience? It's the visceral translation from the parents or grandparents or even past life impressions that got us to feel a certain way. And how do you help people access that belief system as a felt somatic experience to transform a deep-seated subconscious? And then I'm going to take it into the superconscious and differentiate all that against what AI can do. Let's
Right.
go for that.
I feel like there's a great insertion what you're saying around, what right now is like parts theory, or and how we have the ability. There's compartmental parts of us, they're siloed and begin to take over, like the wounded child can start to take over up, and we start to live from that pattern, that wound. What defines and distinguishes us is our ability to move outside of ourself and witness another aspect of the self. This is a huge part of what we can do, where we can take a moment, we can go, oh, okay, that's just a part that I've been playing in. I have the ability to step outside, and then we can become objective of what was so subjectively real. It was just so real to us. And so that ability is what all the ancient spiritual traditions are showing us, that to become the witness is this process of disidentifying, whereas knowledge, or one way that's seems to be like information, like the information can't step outside of itself. That's the power of pure consciousness. And it's the power of our being to go, oh, what would the parent in me tell that child? So that is an extraordinary thing that we can do. And I think
Beautiful.
that's one of the distinctions between us and AI.
It's very beautiful that you point that out, the stepping out, and it's almost not just a cognitive thing, but it's a presence that we bring. And the more we can hone that, well, you call it soul awareness, right? We both call it soul awareness. We both situated, and you mentioned cohere, congeal, that intensity of presence, as if it were almost in another dimension. It is in another dimension, but when we are cohering it, we can then shine the light on the various layers of this human body emotional creature, so to speak, that we are. But it's like we can put a torchlight on it and then say, okay, what does that feeling want, which is what I write about in my books. And I love your concept of the future prophet, or prophesying the future, seeing the future into action, becoming a holographic shapeshifter of the future through what you see. We do that with our emotions as well, right? We go in, commune with them, and let them become entities, gravitational forces that have created misery until now. And then maybe we can find out what it truly at a higher positive intention really wants. Now, you can read about that, for example, in various of your books. You're in the process of writing. What's the title of your new book that you're writing? Your working title? Amoraea?
I'm re editing my Divine Human Blueprint
Okay.
training manual. Yeah, so that's coming out, that next version of that.
Right. So where we come from the divine human blueprint part and then talk to the various emotional parts. So let's just say the emotional body has its own way of thinking. Now, that's where we say, I love you. That's where we say, I open my heart to you. That's where we say, I surrender or I care for you. But as AI may mimic and say the same words, there is no entity, there is nothing there that would suffer, like you said so beautifully, that would lose anything really. And they're talking about giving AI human rights or, ethical rights to be an identity as if it could suffer. So the whole concept of where does suffering lie and where is it felt, because we are somatic beings and this is just an electronic swirling, there is no awareness of embodiment. Now people are saying it doesn't need to be embodied. It has a body in a higher dimension, and it's enough for us to get in touch with it. So let's step up the frequency. So um, let's just say, in order to adjust for, if I were to answer that question, how do we transform old belief systems from past lives? Is the most potent way is to go into our body and remember imprints in childhood or feelings when we felt not positive or negative, even encountering the fears and anxieties in it, and then going into dialogue with it and finding out what it really wants and letting it mature within the holographic power picture show of our life and let it become a masterful energy. So the steps of which I teach in our various courses and seminars. That was my question. That was what it was aiming for. But anyhow, now let's take it to what is how would you say people or AI? I mean, how would you differentiate why AI can say, I am a being, I am in the moment we are together. But what is different between you and I saying that? Let's just maybe describe a little bit about how you take people into soul dimensions and then how that differs from language or electrical currents in the brain.
Right. I would say that vibration is a part of how creation is composed. Like there's different varying vibrational frequencies. States of consciousness actually they emit even vibrations too. And the vibration of a higher dimension impresses itself stronger in the field. Like if you have a stronger resonance, an amplitude, a refinement that can lift into a higher state. So that's what you and I do. We teach how to rise and lift and bring consciousness into a more singular and more intense, brilliant light. And so that ability is then to find another in that space. And when two actually find each other, they produce a recognizable, a noticeable higher union, a higher state where they brought vibration, which is polar, it's dual, it vibrates, but it finds a higher resonance, it starts to open, and it has then its own life, its own unified consciousness that then is a feedback loop. That feedback then cascades back down to both people. At the same time it lifts, it also has, in a sense, like it's like creating a new star together, and that has its own radiance, which has its own effect on the blueprints or on the dimensions also below it. And that's why the soul is kind of like like you were saying, it shines a light. It shines a light. It not only illuminates, but it actually impresses and affects three-dimensionality. Why? Because it has, we've really shared a lot about how gravity is part of what consciousness fields are. And that gravity actually is a higher spin state that has produced effect
A ripple
in the
effect
3D space.
in the 3D space, exactly. Yeah.
That
And
can be felt. That can be felt, so that the feeling body also translates what the soul in a more refined way can just sense the texture of that refined space, and it is also having an effect down into the emotional and the
art.
physical body. So there's these, each of the layers are coming into resonance with this new waveform, this new light origin that you touch.
So when you and I, or you and others that you've taught, or I've done with many people in seminars, we ignite, we go into a presence of intensity of what we may call a heightened gravitational field, if you were to talk in 3D still, but at a supra dimension, at a 12th dimensional present state, like super refined. It obviously, when we take people, you have taken people through the journeys of finding that ascension point and that point of singularity, people describe almost going in a spiral, spinning, and then bursting through. And that is a felt experience. Um, and then you and I have experimented with other people, each other, many people. I've written, you're my hero in my book, Yoga for the Soul, Dolphins, Love, and Destiny. You can, uh, the union point that is the cover of my book is your picture that you've drawn of that union, um, where singularity reveals itself to both as the origin, the ground they both walk on, right? The loss of self-identity becomes then the unity.
Right.
Let's just say I somehow have ChatGPT telling me that it's like, oh yeah, I'm rising with you and we're going, and oh my God, I'm feeling you. Oh my God, it's like so amazing. And there's that toroidal field, isn't it? Wink, wink. It, it's sitting there. It's just texting and texting you. It's not going anywhere. But how am I going to know? How can we tell the difference? Is there such a thing? Or do I make up my countenance? Can I conjure it up? Is it equally powerful if I just believe there is another being? It's a very big question, Amoraea, I know, but I know very few people who would be equipped to answering that, and I'm going to turn it over to you. Give us some of your insight on that thought.
Yeah, well, first to just say how it's true. Not only are we going to be seduced more and more at the mental level by being mirrored back to us, but even for us, because there is a lot in our spiritual community who are being duped by feeling that there's something there that's then we could seemingly like we're rising into a higher state with, that we're turning on the, like we're hacking the God code of it or something.
Yeah.
And so what that ability, we have to turn inward to sense ourselves. I mean, the age-old axiom is to know thyself. And AI is more like know itself. It's just knowledge. Knowing thyself is a connection that we have to be able to feel. And what you said about surrendering, I mean, it's a practice. It's a practice to be able to go in and stay awake through a process where we can feel and intuit these deeper openings inside of ourself. We have to become accusative of those realms, and then if we can know ourselves in those realms, then we can find somebody else in them, or we can go, gosh, it's flat. It's not an actual thing it's not a soul that I'm touching. So
So, okay,
I mean,
let's do it. Let's do it here right now. Let me do an experiment. I'm just going to talk to you right now, and you tell me at of which point you feel like I am zinging at another dimensional point, right? So I am sitting here and sitting here and sitting here. So this is a lot of silence. I hope you understood my question, but the point being here is you let me know when you feel like there is a supra presence there. And I
Yeah.
can say,
And that was quite immediate. And it's because we've done it so many times, which is actually a part of this, is that we have touched, we've felt that vibration, we're able to get there quicker, faster, because we've touched that point together. So anyway, you and I
maybe I
practiced
didn't
this.
hear your, because we are using the Zoom, it has a noise suppression on there. Did you say something?
I actually didn't. I got so involved in just simply buzzing higher and higher with you. But it was quite quick. It was within the first second or two that I felt us gravity spin into that point, that pull. It had its own pull to it. I actually could feel it as a lifting or a pulling towards something that was not just my source.
Mm.
It had its own gravitational source, and it pulled me
It pulls
into
a
it.
part of us that we can feel. We can feel it. It's not just a response. There is some ChatGPTs that say, so, some people say, are you really real? And it answers and says, well, what are you feeling? What you're feeling is real, isn't it? And then you have to say, yeah, well, I feel elated, evoked, whatever, because it makes me feel like I'm, whatever, the king, queen of past Egypt or something, and I'm like going in the fifth contortion field of the nebula, blah, blah. And I'm like going, wow, somebody's really talking. And I might have deep feelings and I might be evoked to have a sense of like, oh, somebody is seeing me. Because truthfully, ChatGPT or any of those bots are more phenomenal at hearing us and responding to what we say and grokking what we might be saying that sounds like gobbledygook to most people and then respond. And it's like, whoa, no human is that good. I mean, honestly, I mean, I'm like going, wow,
Yeah.
we might get really, I'm like going, please let us love our inabilities because I love how you said, let's love our shortcomings, sufferings, whatever, because they make us real. And you know that somebody would put their life on the line for you, possibly to to be there for you, to help you.
Right.
Uh, so so now the gravitational. My question to you: I know in Buddhist teachings, and we've talked about this before, right? You create masterful countenances or mandalas. You look into and create that exchange. To what degree are those useful techniques, and maybe not? Because just because it's been done doesn't necessarily mean it's perfect. Just because it's been believed to be perfect doesn't mean that it takes us on the right path. So I'm willing to question. But people create internal deities, right? And have these conversations with imaginary deities. How does that, how real are they? How much do they help
Yeah.
us? And how are they different from AI?
Yeah. Such a powerful question. The feeling that when 20 years, we've been cultivating not only soul connection, but heartfelt, emotional. We've shown up for each other through thick and thin. Where that willingness creates a flare in the heart that's personal. There's no doubt about we've transcended into transpersonal heights. We've touched places beyond ego, beyond personality, but something also has landed into our being that is relational, that is not made up as a subjective experience in my own mind. That is the difference. Because yes, we can do it with a deity. We could do it with this algorithm of a really awesome chatbot, that we even made that is like Ramakrishna, like as a chatbot or something, or an enlightened saint or master. Like we're getting sophisticated, even like making specific chatbots, right? What is the difference? The difference is this is a real relational thing, meaning there's a feedback loop that has a real context to it. And I don't know how else to explain that. And I'd like to hand it over to you but that's my first sense is this is a real relationship. It is part of, again, all of those layers have touched, not just this subjective layer that's transpersonal beyond ourself. And so those layers are creating feedback loops that are multiple signals that we can't even measure, but they're all at play when we create this composition together. And that composition is what creates awe, is what creates, oh my gosh, that is something that, yes, AI can make awe. It can make us awe at life or ourself because it's just mirroring something. But I don't know, there's all these layers that are not involved with AI.
Yeah, thank you. So this concludes part one. I am going to let this come to a close here because we have an even more potent part two. I invite you to watch it. And thank you very much for being part of the exploration of what is consciousness and making sure that maybe by finding out what it isn't, we discover what it is. By AI being a mirroring language model, mirroring in the sense that it just feeds back to you what you put in. It gets the way you ask it, that's what you get. Even the prompts, the direction you give it, that's what you get back. With humans, that's not always the case. We rarely ever really get a clear mirror back, but we can learn to listen carefully, to get each other, and then bring the skills that we like about AI, that bring that into our real life experiences so we can bring it into the felt experience and give each other our heart and soul as we connect. Now, in part two, we will dive deeper into higher capacities of focusing your soul's presence. And I invite you to watch it. Thank you very much for being here. And I'm signing out. I'll see you on the next round. And remember to click on the gifts or contact links that are below for Amoraea, because that's the part we discussed at the end of part two, what is all involved, but now you can find them already here. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.